I wanted to tell this story about strange marriages within the organization. And I'm sure if you were a Jehovah's Witness, you saw some of those. Because they are encouraged to marry basically the first person they date. You only date with the intentions to marry. So, and also, of course, you can't have sex before marriage, so a lot of people will rush into a marriage just for those benefits. One particular story, I have two stories. One particular story was this couple I knew. The guy was a pretty good friend of mine. He was a lot older than me. He's in his 60s, but we actually hit it off pretty good. I'm almost 40 years old, so there's like a 20-something year difference. But anyway, that really doesn't mean much to me. I mean, if I mesh well with a person, I mesh well with him. But anyway, his wife was younger than me. There was a good almost 30 years. Well, no, she was a little older than me. So there's probably a 20-year difference between the two of them. She was 40-ish. 41, 42, and he was in his 60s. So anyway, they broke up so many times, it was almost comical. They would live together. They would always have like a nice house. I mean, they both had decent jobs. And so they would live together, and they would break up. She would move into an apartment. They would sell the house. He would go to an apartment or a trailer or something like that, and for a couple of years, then they'd get back together. They'd buy a house, they'd break up, sell the house. I mean, they must have lived in a dozen places in the just few years that I knew them. And I knew this was an ongoing thing before I even really got to know him. But the age difference, I'm sure, had a lot to do with it. I'm sure she realized, she was married to an old man, and that she could have, she was pretty. She probably had regrets that she could have married somebody her age and had kids, and because she didn't have kids and all that good stuff. But they went through, that I can remember, at least 10 breakups. And then 2 divorces, and then they would remarry each other. And the funny thing is that during one of their divorces, they started deciding that they were going to get back together, so they started dating, But they had to have a chaperone. Now, these people had been married for years, but since they're divorced now and redating, I had to chaperone them a few times. It is so weird because, I mean, these people know each other very well. They were married. I don't think they needed a chaperone, but it was basically just to keep them from doing it until they got married again. It was so silly. And so then he got disfellowshipped. I don't know why. He never told me, and I didn't ask. But the whole time he was disfellowshipped, I would still try to talk to him. But he was trying to do the right thing and wouldn't talk to me. And when I would see him at the meetings, I'd pat him on the back, stuff like that. But then I disassociate myself while he's still disfellowshipped. And I tried to contact him, but I think he had changed his number. And so then he gets reinstated and contacts me. And he says he wanted to thank me for still reaching out to him and stuff while he was disfellowshipped. And I just said, no problem, man. Good to hear from you. If you want to hang out anytime. I didn't say anything about me not being a witness anymore. I don't think that's my duty. And he said, yeah, great. We'll do that or whatever. And never heard from him again. I'm sure, he goes to the same congregation as my brother, who's an elder. I'm sure as soon as he got reinstated, he probably asked about me, and that's the end of that. But they're divorced again. Yeah, something in my mouth. Anyway, they're divorced again, and he's living in this condo that they had, and she moved to a whole different city, and we've seen this a million times. But he's reinstated and stuff again, and so we'll see if they get back together. So then the second story is my uncle. My uncle was married to my aunt, and she died of cancer, and this was, my goodness, 40 years ago, maybe longer. So anyway, he remarries, and it was a quick date and marry kind of situation, and they just did not work out. There was some physical and verbal abuse going on between the both of them, and just a really bad situation. So they split up and divorced. Now, that was probably, my goodness, 25 years ago. And my uncle has been a widower ever since, because he can't scripturally remarry. He's an elder, so he's going to hang on to that as long as he can. And he can't scripturally remarry because they divorced just for differences. They just didn't get along. And so because of that, according to Jehovah's Witnesses, they're still scripturally married. It's the same thing with that couple I was talking about the first time. The reason they kept getting back together was because they can't go to anybody else. Per Jehovah's Witness rules, that when they're divorced, they're still married in God's eyes. So they were the only two that could ever be with each other, so they kept trying to work it out. Well, my uncle and his second wife, there's no working that out. Neither one of them want to. And he has no idea where she is. He doesn't know if she's remarried, if she's still a Jehovah's Witness. He has no idea. So it's a possibility that she remarried somebody, which then would make everything null and void, and he could remarry. But he has no idea. She's Lord knows where, across country. And so here he's going on 20, 25, 30 years of having to be single, living in his daughter's basement because of the Jehovah's Witness rules on marriage. And so it's just silliness like that you think about later. So anyway, one thing that me and my wife always thought was funny is they're hardcore about that rule, right? That you divorce somebody, you can't remarry somebody else. And that situation I was just talking about. But one rule that they aren't hardcore about, they speak out about it, but they do nothing about it, is if a Jehovah's Witness marries somebody outside of the organization. Now, that used to be a big deal, but they don't really care much anymore. And I think the reason why is because it's bringing more people into the organization, and that's all they really care about. So if you're a Jehovah's Witness and you marry a worldly person, 9 times out of 10 you're going to keep going to meetings, and then eventually they're going to want to check it out or start going, at least. Even if they're not members, they'll go just for you. It happens all the time. So it's just silliness like that. And I wanted to end this video because through the grapevine, me and my wife have heard that my niece, who is 21, is trying to get out. She lives with my sister and her husband, and the husband also is not, he's baptized, but he's just not strong in the truth. And he doesn't talk about his feelings or anything. He's real hard nut to crack, so we just don't know why he stopped going to the meetings, and he doesn't really talk about it. So it makes me wonder if he woke up years ago. But my sister rules the roost over there. She's a pretty strong-minded person, and she's just kind of the boss around there. Not necessarily that that's a bad thing, but the fact of the matter is that my niece still lives with him, even though she's 21, and I think my sister still pays her phone bill and stuff like that. So her getting out is not going to be real easy. But we heard that she's trying. She doesn't want to be a Jehovah's Witness, and she's told them that. And I'm pretty sure my sister has put them on lockdown. She wants to make sure that she definitely doesn't get a hold of me, because she knows what I would have to say about it. And we also have a huge giant farmhouse we bought that has all kinds of room in it, and we could room and board her pretty easily. But by the way, if you're out there and you're hearing this, give me a call. My number is the same as it's always been, and my email, which is tory848@gmail.com. And I accept emails from anybody, by the way. If you want to email me and tell me your story, that's okay too. But anyway, that's just what I had on my mind today. We'll talk to you guys later. Give me your thoughts.